And we're back with another episode of Before You Buy. That show where we give you some straight up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. As usual, it's me, Jake Baldino, and today we're talking about Stellar Blade. We've been playing a review copy, and this footage is spoiler free, so you know, and the gameplay was captured on PS5. This game is actually only on PS5, actually. Published by Sony, but developed by Shift Up Corporation, a South Korean development studio previously focused on mobile games. So this is a big first debut. I wasn't sure what to think going into this one. After spending a bunch of hours with it, though, I really like it. It's not perfect, and some of it feels a little phoned in, but the combat and the visuals are top-notch. An analogy, if you humor me, I'm sorry, car people, you're gonna hate this, but Stellar Blade is kind of like one of those brand new Corvettes. Yes, they don't make them like they used to, and the design may not end up being as memorable as the classic design. It just doesn't have the personality of the classic Corvette, and actually reminds you of a lot of other cars out there. But still, this new one is flashy and a good fun ride. That might sound stupid, but I wanted to get my feelings out up front. I also think if you played the demo, you haven't really seen much. I think the game significantly gets much better and stronger as it opens up within a few more hours. So, what exactly is Stellar Blade? It's an action-adventure game centered around combat and some exploration, with some open-ended explorable areas, as well as a surprisingly big hub city. Now, you play as Eve, a kind of designed super soldier sent down to post-apocalyptic Earth, ridden with monstrous Natibas, and she is on a quest to destroy the Alpha Natibas, the most big, bad, powerful ones. But she quickly gets wrapped up with one of the last bastions of humanity on this planet, and this whole bigger mission entails. The story, some of it is really lost in clunky performances and writing. There are some really cool ideas and some solid world building sometimes on display, but you might not find yourself really getting emotionally invested or really hooked on the characters. At least I didn't. This is, of course, a little bit more subjective. Some people are dismissing this as kind of like the poor man's Nier Automata, but I'd push back against that. There are some moments worth experiencing here, but it ultimately just feels a bit flat and lifeless compared to all the other crazy, awesome, and beautiful things going on elsewhere in this game, namely the combat. This is the main thing you're doing in the game, and Eve is a combat badass, and the combat is the best thing about this game. It's why I still ultimately recommend it. You have light strikes, heavy strikes, a block, a parry, and a dodge. This is how you start. You're not worrying about a stamina meter, but your block meter, and you are also trying to parry as much as possible to stun enemies and open them up for critical attacks. Parrying is tough, but mostly fair. Nailing a chain of attacks with parries feels really good, with good feedback, giant flashes, and a loud clang that, for me, just never really got old. Some enemies are a bit hard to read and time perfectly, so it's not like the most refined masterpiece in the world, but most enemies are really engaging clashes. And this is just with the basics. You're getting more combos, dash attacks, air attacks, and the game consistently doles out new stuff for you. Firstly, through a skill tree. You level up and gain points to dump into a handful of skill tree clusters that are focused on the different character aspects. So gain more combos, better dodges and perfect parries, more energy drain. There's a lot, and most of it is meaningful. You can also respec if you want at any point, but again, it's pretty generous with points, and you're gonna feel satisfied unlocking a lot consistently throughout. The game also has its own version of dealing with those pesky big enemy attacks that flash a certain color. Stop me if you've heard that before. Two examples here. An enemy attack flashes blue, and you need to time it perfectly and dodge towards them. So you get a flashy little bit where your character teleports behind them and gets them vulnerable. There's also a purpley one where when you time it right, you dodge back perfectly for another cool sequence where the enemy is stunned with a weak point exposed. Here, if you have it unlocked, you can pull out your gun and start shooting at that point, and it is really satisfying to pull off flawlessly in motion. Kind of like in The Matrix Reloaded when Morpheus flips the car over by slicing it with his sword and then spins around and starts shooting at it. It's like that, and the gunshots work really well here. The gun itself is like your little companion drone that follows you around, and when you ADS, it turns into a gun arm mount, and you have control over different ammo types and stuff, all which are pretty different. Now, Stellar Blade is still primarily a brawler, but this and some other like little things like limited use throwables and healing items and buffs just give you a bit more strategy to slashing and blocking endlessly. And along with that, there are special big abilities dependent on meter spends mapped to holding L1 and pressing a face button or R1 and a face button. Like beta energy attacks can really help out in a pinch, and then burst attacks are usually a bit more cinematic and are worth saving for the right moment to really save your ass. There's also more the game doles out to you that I don't want to spoil, but essentially one of them, it's like more temporary power, and it's cool as hell. I'll let you discover that for yourself, though. When you really get a grip on all of these gameplay combat elements, I can't really express just how exciting and fun it feels to execute a perfect fight, man. It's flashy, it's over the top, and there are some great enemy types. You know, a few generic stinkers here and there, but some of the bigger bads and the bosses are really imposing, and have them wailing on you and you're just effortlessly cling clang blocking them to open them up for a special attack, and then you get like this big over the top thing with Eve flipping over them with a sword. It's cool. It's all really great in motion. I know I'm overusing the word cool, but that's what it is here. And challenge-wise, the game is actually fairly reasonable up to a point. As someone who, to be honest, my skills just get worse and worse over the years, the game does a good job coaching. You hit multiple points in the game where it kind of feels like a boss or a sub-boss is kind of built around being a skill check, making you kind of really get it before moving forward, and I appreciate that. That being said, though, don't expect a cakewalk. The game is no slouch, and it does really ramp it up, so good luck. My only complaint with the combat, really, facing off against a few enemies at once feels a bit messy. Partially, I think, because of the lock-on, but also, I think, just because of Eve's maneuverability. She's not always the best at striking one enemy and then pivoting to another. The combat is way better for one-on-one. Now, you get used to this problem, you can handle crowds, you can work with it, especially with the beta abilities, but it just doesn't feel as crisp as the rest of it. Like when you're slashing at a handful of enemies that are like a little shorter than you, it just feels a little bit more wonky. The game has plenty of side quests and things to pick up on from characters in the world, and some of them are pretty decent and somewhat in-depth, but they usually end up grindy or revolve around being something else to do or look for while you're on your main mission. When it wants you in certain missions to go back to a previous area for a side quest, I found those less exciting. Some environments, though, can be downright jaw-dropping looking. Just soaring, barren landscapes or beautiful sunsets, post-apocalyptic wastelands, spooky caves and caverns and laboratories, but other areas, like when you're actually playing, can just be pretty linear, boring hallways where you might get a little lost because stuff actually repeats. This is where the game loses some personality points. Exploration is usually rewarding because you find goodies to craft attack upgrades, you find expendable items and money to use at shops, also materials for crafting new outfits, of which there are a lot. You can be sexy, you can be robotic, you can be tactical, casual, dressed up, or weird, and you can change your hair. So good luck, have fun if you're into that stuff. But the exploration does tend to feel a bit bland after a while. Some really tedious puzzles and clunky platforming feel like video game bullshit. You know, just phoned in stuff there to kind of slow me down. I don't hate it, you know, it's all perfectly workmanlike, none of it's too frustrating, but it's the area of the game that can feel a bit boring and lifeless. Also, along with that, just wanted to point out there are a few action sequences where you need to pull off something perfectly, or you get an instant fail, and some of those felt kind of half-baked and annoying. But thankfully, on the bright side, the hub town is really cool, and there's some creativity on display here. Now, a lot of the time, I will totally say this, the game can just feel like kind of a mishmash of sci-fi elements and styles and designs and forgettable characters, but then every once in a while you stumble upon a weird NPC or a little quest or a journal entry that makes the game feel like it has something cool to it and is a bit more thought out. You know, it's not the most cohesive, but it's sometimes interesting. But if you can't tell by the tone of my voice, I am mixed. Also, the vendors and stuff, like the vendors have their own quirks and necessities. They also have an affinity level, so the more you buy from them, you level up the affinity and unlock more things to buy. They'll also tell you things and just kind of open up the world a little bit, and then you have your crew members you can chat with as well. Again, a lot of this stuff can trend on the forgettable side, but there are some moments. And I think some people just might dig some characters or aspects more than me, but really, like I've been saying, the main crux is the combat, and it just really kicks ass. I was always excited for the next encounter, always excited for the next fight, even like with a low-level enemy, because it's so satisfying. Now, Stellar Blade just feels kind of like its own thing in this department. It's not a Bayonetta, it's not like a big slasher thing, it's not a Nier, it's also not quite like a Souls RPG, it's just its own flashy, zany thing that takes elements from other games, and I think I really like Stellar Blade for that. Also, depending on how you play and explore, anywhere from 20 to 30 hours, but there are multiple endings and reasons to replay, so that's all I'll say. Really, the gist of this game, it is fun. Stellar Blade is just like 100% old-fashioned video game fun. It might not be the most cohesive or unforgettable world, but like killing bad guys with cool graphics and some really good music and vibes with thrilling combat, sometimes that's all I really need. I don't really need to overthink things too much. So to be honest, that's a before you buy. You know how this works by now. We give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion, and now we want to hear yours down in the comments. Chances are maybe you played the demo if you were interested in this. I definitely want to know what you think, but again, I think it opens up a lot after the demo, so let me know some of your shortcomings with the demo, stuff you're looking forward to. If you're even interested in the game, let's talk. If you want to hear more from me, of course, you can always find me on social media at Jake Baldino or my other YouTube channel. It's my name, Jake Baldino. But if this video helped you out, steered you in one direction or another, just seeing some gameplay, you know, clicking the like button does help us out. We would appreciate that. Thank you. But if you're new, consider subscribing because we put out videos every single day. But that's it. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Damn it. Run! That's enough excitement for one day.
That was close. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. For me? I could get used to this.